No Smithfield Town Council meeting, January 21st, 2025. Madam Clerk, can you start us with prayer and pledge, please?
Thank you for bringing us together today in a spirit of generosity. May we honor one another by keeping an open mind. May we voice our truth and listen with an open heart. May we discern your will to unite in a fruitful outcome. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Beauregard?
Here.
Mr. Christopherow?
Here.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Here.
Mr. Punchak?
Here.
Ms. Alves?
Here. Open forum pursuant to 42-46-6D, maximum 3 minutes per person. Did anyone want to sign up for open forum? Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike Davis, 151 Douglas Pike. I'm just here. I applied for the budget committee position. I'm not going to be able to stay for the whole meeting. I saw that it was lower in the agenda. So I just wanted to say that I've been a resident for 9 years. I watch the meetings, the town council meetings pretty closely on YouTube, almost every meeting. I have a degree in computer science and an MBA. It's with a specialty in finance, so I think my qualifications would be good. So just asking for your approval if you guys agree. So,
Okay.
all right, thank you.
Great, thank you for coming. Anyone else want to sign up for open forum? Anyone else? No Smithfield Town Council sitting as Board of Licensing. Knight of Columbus, located at 79 St. Paul Street, request for Class F liquor license for event on March 15, 2025. Applicant Jeffrey Highcove, Grand Night. Representing meeting will be Mike Lesperance. Mike, did you want to?
Yes, my name is Mike Lesperance. From Millville, Mass. I'm as close to North Smithfield where I live as you can possibly be, but I'm not. I think that's why they sent me here, because our church, parish, Divine Mercy at St. Paul's Church is right on the border. The church is in Blackstone and the hall is in North Smithfield, so that's why we come to you to apply for a class license F, I believe it is. Yeah, for a beer and wine liquor license. This is one of our big fundraisers of the year. March 15th, yeah, for the Irish Night. So I come before you to apply for that.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, is everything in order? Yes. Does anyone have any questions?
I just had one question. So on this application, it says, do you need an entertainment license? And the response was yes. Is that a separate process, or is that something that? It's all, so, okay.
And we also have a tip certified bartender, so that Jeffrey is a tip certified bartender.
Anyone else have any other questions? Anyone like to make a motion, please?
Make a motion to approve the Knights of Columbus request for a Class F liquor license for an event on March 15th, 2025.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Beauregard?
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Punchak?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes, you're all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Discussion by council vote or other action on payment of bills. Does anyone have any questions with the packet in their, the packet of bills in their packet?
Madam President, I have a question.
Yeah.
Line 29, it is Municipal Collections Agency Incorporated. $2,100, $2,188 for November MCA fees. Is it my understanding that the municipal collections agency essentially helps us recoup whatever, monies we're collecting?
Exactly.
Okay, and then with that being said, do we feel, are they like one of the only agencies in Rhode Island, or are there multiple agencies in Rhode Island?
I don't know if they're the only agency, but they're the one that has the most municipalities under them.
Okay, the most municipalities, and
Yeah.
what is our success rate of recoupment with this agency?
Pretty well. I mean, both collectors are, both of the clerks in the collector's office are pretty happy. Any
Okay.
of the other municipalities that we've talked to have been happy with their turnover.
Okay.
Obviously, we had when we first handed over our book to them, they had, they're turning over a ton of money to us, and now that's gonna dissipate over time, because
Okay.
there's not as much for them to grab onto. But yeah, in terms of what they've been able to do and how they're able to communicate with us, they're really great, and they're pretty knowledgeable too,
Okay.
with the laws and stuff.
Okay, and then that fee, 2188, is that as is, or is that based on like a
It's a
percentage of what
percentage.
they recoup?
If I wanna say it's somewhere in the 20%. I don't remember the exact percentage.
So they keep 20, we keep the remainder?
Right,
Okay,
yep.
that's not a bad rate, okay. Thank you, that was my only question.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
If not, there was a couple things I wanted to go over.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because, just, there was a couple negative items in the, gotta go all the way down here, all the way. In the expenditure status report, so, just in case they came up as questions, I just wanted to get ahead of it. So, on page number 1 for the check register, first of all of the petty cash,
Bless you.
those were, it says they were paid out to me, they weren't. I had to go to the bank, the town had to write me a check so I could, get that money from the bank and then replenish the petty cash, so that's first. And then on the detailed expenditure status report, page 4, under tax assessor, the software and licenses are negative. That's because Vision had charged us more than we anticipated, but we already have a budget transfer that's already covering that. It just wasn't reflected in this expenditure status report because it was printed, it was printed before the budget transfer had occurred. And then, Parks and Rec overtime, the negative dollar amount there, I don't think is correct, so that's something I'm gonna plan on looking into between now and next council meeting, just to make sure that there's nothing wrong with the payroll. That's it.
So Tony, when we have print checks for petty cash, we don't just do a town of North Smithfield and cash it?
I tried, so that's a new, we were doing that, and then it's a new policy with Webster that they don't cash checks for petty cash. I wasted a whole morning going to 2 different branches, trying to talk to the branch manager about the situation, and they're like, no, this is the new policy, so they have to, whenever you get down to the low balance with petty cash, the town has to write me a check, I go to Webster Bank, and I cash it, and I bring it back with whatever denomination Marie wants. It's so,
Puts you in a bad spot.
yeah, well, it's just, yeah, it's annoying, because the only 2 branches, there's one in middle of Providence, and then one all the way out in, like, Cranston or something, so.
Thank you. And then one other question is to piggyback on the last meeting, the juvenile hearing board, I noticed there's a little bit of payroll. Is that just because, they're just paid based on meetings, right?
Right, so they send us a bunch of them all at once, and it could be that, when this was I did do a bunch of them, when I was doing the journal entries that we were behind on, but this was printed prior to that.
Okay.
So we should see some coming through now that the journal entries are reflective in the accounting system.
Okay. And thank you for getting the payrolls uploaded.
Yeah, it took a little bit, but we got
So
it.
now we're ready for budget, right?
Yeah, budget templates were sent out last week. Should have them by January 31st.
Perfect. Thank you. Anyone else have any other questions on the bills? Anyone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the payment of bills for January 2025 in the amount of $3,443,900. $446,310.18.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs.
Yes.
O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Discussion by council vote or other action on consent agenda. All items listed in this section are considered in one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a councilor requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda. A, town council minutes of December 2nd, 16th, and 19th of 2024. And communications, monthly animal control report for December 2024. North Smithfield Fire and Rescue monthly report for December 2024. North Smithfield Fire and Rescue Annual Report of 2024, North Smithfield Municipal Court Monthly Report for December 2024, and North Smithfield Police Department Monthly Report for December 2024. Would anyone like any of these removed from the consent agenda?
I just had a typo or grammatical request on one of the meeting minutes. Does it have to be removed?
Which one would you like to remove?
December 2nd.
Okay. Anyone else have any other they'd like to remove? I'd like to make a motion to approve all other items on the consent agenda, less minutes of December 2nd, 2024. That's a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. And did you want to bring up December 2nd?
Yeah, so just on December 2nd, on the first page below open forum, the paragraph that starts motion made by Mr. Punchak, roll call vote to retrieve, should that be retain or something? The services of Attorney Vincent Ragosta?
Okay.
Yeah, that was, it just, when I read it, I was a little confused, but that was all.
All right, someone like to make a motion to approve as amended?
So moved?
Any other, can I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Old business, discussion by council vote, other action on status/progress report of specific items. Facilities manager, Mr.
Yes,
Administrator.
I met with the Asset Management Commission. Sorry. I met with the Asset Management Commission a couple weeks ago. They're meeting again, I believe, next week, and their plan is to come before the council probably in February to do a little presentation about the direction that they want to go. So we have good communications with them.
Great, thank you. Grants?
Yes, first of all, I want to apologize. This is my fault. I mean, the items under that, and it's referenced in a memorandum that I provided you. Quite frankly, although these are grants, I'm going to, in the future, ask for a separate agenda item specifically as it relates to the Route 146 project, because I don't want to have anyone think that we're trying to hide anything. There's no action requested as part of this budget item, but specifically the tax increment financing study is underway. We're having a meeting with the consultants on Thursday. And in speaking with Council President, I had asked for, going forward, if consideration to have somebody from the town council to be part of those conversations going forward, only in that I don't want to go all the way down to the end on this and then come back to the council with a plan and have the council not know what's really going on. So I just think the communication channels would be good to have a council representative on that tax increment financing study. The Rhode Island Ready Grant, same on the project. We received a $150,000 grant from the state of Rhode Island to do some preliminary engineering on the sewer and water infrastructure in 146. When I came in, I took a look at the scope of services that were being proposed by PAR Engineering, who is the consultant on retainer by the state. I had some issues with the scope. Specifically, the scope only referenced water improvements, and I made it very clear, including the time I met before this council before I was elected, that water is not enough. We have to look at water and sewer. And they made an amendment modification to the scope to include a line item for sewer. The Rhode Island Commerce Corporation staff has agreed with that. We're just now waiting for the state to issue us the grant agreement so that we can review and then submit to the town council for authorization to sign. Once we get that signed, then we can execute the contract with PAR Engineering. The state grant is paying for PAR Engineering's work, which is also $150,000. As it relates to this initiative also, and it's referenced in the memorandum, the idea was that once we got through with the preliminary feasibility and engineering analysis for the 146 corridor, we needed to take a hard look at the land use regulatory environment for 146. Things are beginning to happen in that corridor. I'm not going to make a value judgment one way or the other. However, I think that we need to get ahead of the curve on this one and take a hard look at the that area, whether it should be identified as a separate zoning district or an overlay district, one or the other, and a separate use table so that we can begin to control more what the uses are going into the 146 corridor as opposed to reacting to it. Because right now there seems to be sort of a pickup in interest in that area, not surprisingly, with over $100 million of state infrastructure investment going on there. So we'll come back to you on that. Initially, I thought we were going to wait till after the feasibility studies were done, but I think we may get ahead of that curve a little bit and come back to council with an idea of going out for an RFP for planning services to take a look at that whole area from a land use planning standpoint. That's it.
Does anyone have any questions or?
Hey, Madam President, I have a few questions. So, Town Administrator, moving forward, will ensure that we have specific agenda items for
Yes.
the 146 corridor?
Yes.
Okay, because I know a few people expressed interest in the 146
Yep.
corridor, so I want to be sure that we're being
And I
transparent.
also want to emphasize, Councilwoman, that as part of both the TIF analysis as well as the Rhode Island Ready grant, there's going to be opportunities for public input in those. So that's not going to just be the administration coming up with a grand scheme. It's going to be public input.
Awesome, thank you. Do we have an update on the applications or the paperwork essentially that we discussed last time we met in regards to the multi-generational center? I think we said that we were going to have the grant writers, you know, pursue the appropriate paperwork to ensure that we're meeting deadlines.
Yes. As a follow-up to our last meeting, one, we have provided written notice to G&G of a 60-day termination clause. I have spoken to the principal of G&G, explaining our position. He understands. And I told him we're going to go back out for RFP in probably 60 days for new grant services. He will apply, which I said you are absolutely entitled to apply. But in the meantime, I've asked G&G to focus specifically, because they have 60 days, and I don't want them to, and nor are they going to abuse the fact they have 60 days. I've asked them to focus on the Community Development Block Grant Program in the state of Rhode Island. We're typically not that eligible for CDBG money because we're not considered to be a economically distressed community. However, the multi-generational facility, because one of its focus targets is the senior community, that does meet the income criteria. So myself and the town, the planning director had a online meeting with the Rhode Island Department of Housing on the CDBG program, and they concurred that the multi-generational facility would be an eligible project, and specifically looking at possibly getting a grant to help underwrite the cost, some of the cost for the access road and infrastructure from the access road into the site. That's good CDBG eligible activity. And I've also asked them to look at a couple other possibilities, getting CDBG funding. So G&G has according to the principal, they've done a lot of CDBG grants. So I sent a bunch of information over to them. I'm having a conference call with G&G tomorrow on focusing just on that as it relates to the multi-generation facility in particular.
Okay.
As it relates to the other issue, the town ordinance requires that we get, I contact at least 3 grants writers for this. I have talked to 2. I'm trying to finalize the 3rd. I'm hoping to make a final decision this week. I'm bringing in a grants writer for 30 days to focus only on the federal documentation regarding the $4 million and $1 million congressional appropriations for their multi-generational facility. So we're working on that and trying to get that underway immediately.
Okay, thank you.
Since there's a discussion, vote, or other action, so, Mr. Biragad, so with this feasibility study, I know you were working on 146. Is this something you'd be interested in being the town council liaison for?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that. I would like that very much.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion to appoint Mr. Biragad to the tax increment financing feasibility study as the town council liaison.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Ms. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Town administrator, so in the past, we had like, you can set it up however you want it, but we just had a list of all the different grants that were out there and just like
Yeah.
kind of an update.
Yep,
Yeah.
I can do that. I was provided some of that by G&G, but it raised more questions than answers.
Yeah,
And so I will make sure going forward that we have a complete tally of what's out there and where we are in the grant application process.
perfect. Thank you. The next one is a human resource position. So I've been speaking to the town administrator, and we have a slew of applications,
Yeah, we
which
do.
is wonderful to hear. So, and we're vetting them out, and we'll start phone interviews, and so that's great to hear. Thank you. The Municipal Building Review Task Force, I have an update from Signal Works. They said the RFP for owner's project management services, it's in process. Questions deadline for potential bidders is on 1/24. Responses is on 1/31. Deadline for proposal submissions on 2/7, and assume award by end of February. And then the AE pricing set in process, targeting 2/7 for release to cost estimator, 2 to 3 week turnaround. Time on cost estimate, presentation of cost estimate to building subcommittee week of 3/3 or 3/10, and seeking subcommittee approval to proceed to full bidding documents or value engineering if necessary. So they're still moving along, so we should have quite a bit more information for the next meeting, so that's where we stand with that. I know there's quite a few people here for Hollowell, so we're just gonna move it down, we have a few more items so that we can spend the rest of the meeting just on that, so just, if you guys can just hold tight. Discussion by council vote or other action on amendment to Code of Ordinance, Chapter 5, Article 2, Section 5-15, entitled Length of Service, public hearing. So we discussed this last meeting about changing the terms of service for the Planning and Zoning Board and/or Zoning Board. So we can do a couple of things here. We can change it to 3 consecutive full 5-year terms, or we can do it without an expiration. Is that correct, Solicitor?
Correct. I provided both the repeal of any limitation on the maximum number of limited terms of 5 years, and I also, as you know, amended it to make it 3 5-year terms. You have both of, you should have both of those in your packet. I supplied them last week.
Yep.
Or you could do nothing.
Right, and leave it the way it is, okay. All right, as we talked last meeting, I mean, I'm in the favor of if, especially in those 2 committees, if we have people that are there and in the capacity to do the right decisions for the town, then by all means, they should continue. We do have times when we can reappoint somebody else, but it's just important that we have the right people in those positions. So I would actually, now that I know that we don't have to have a term, I would like to go with not having a term limit, and it's just 5 years, and at the end of 5 years, they come up for reappointment as to whether or not they're doing a good job. But that's open to everyone else that has an opinion here.
Thanks. I'm absolutely aligned. So before I say that, I've done some due diligence over the last few weeks to, make a decision that was best informed. I have a bit of an understanding of the history or the genesis, really, of this ordinance, and I do believe at the time that town council really felt as though it was the ordinance that made the most sense for the town. With that being said, I do feel like the onus is on the town council to do their due diligence in appointing and reappointing members to our boards and commissions. It is our responsibility to determine qualifications. How have these boards, how have the members essentially been, I don't want to use the word performing, it sounds very corporate, but performing to a degree. How has their attendance been, right? What is their peer feedback to determine that we're making really informed decisions? So at the end of the day, a finite number of terms really should not matter, because these members are coming up for appointment on a 2-year, 3-year, 5-year basis. Now, it's a bit of a double-edged sword, I feel, because I think, this town council can commit to doing their due diligence to ensure that we're making informed decisions in relation to our boards and committees. But then again, too, in perpetuity, can we say that all town councilors will ensure that same sort of due diligence? So I think that will entail a more in-depth conversation as it relates to just expectations of our boards and commissions in the future. But so I guess that was really a roundabout way of saying yes. I think that we can do away with term limits, because the town council is responsible for, doing their due diligence to ensure that we're making informed decisions.
May I give a roundabout way of saying no? The optics on this are not good. It looks like, and I'm not saying this is the case, because I know it's not, but the optics, it looks like we're changing an ordinance or amending an ordinance for the benefit of one person. And when you amend an ordinance, or you make an ordinance for the benefit or to the detriment of one person, it's always gonna, maybe not, it won't come back immediately, but it will always come back to bite you, or it's gonna bite somebody else. There's a much cleaner way to do this that I think maybe we should look into this. We are in the process right now of putting together a charter review commission. One of the things that the charter review commission can look at is term limits. We can task them with looking at term limits. And then that way there, instead of us being laser focused on, we're trying to change this ordinance, the charter review commission is taking a comprehensive look at the whole picture, and let the charter review commission come up to us with their recommendation. And if the charter review commission comes and says, yes, we are in favor of term limits, or no, we are not in favor of term limits, one or the other, that goes on the ballot, and the voters can decide whether or not they want term limits. And that is a cleaner approach to this. In the meantime, Gary Pilati, who everybody seems to want to stay on there, as do I like Gary, he's doing a great job, can stay on there for another 2 years until it goes before the voters, or until the charter review commission makes their decision and recommends it to the council. I think that'd be a much cleaner way to go, and we're not, that way there we're not, doesn't look like we're messing around with amendments for the benefit of one person.
I don't know if it's necessarily one person, it's just that
No, I know,
the
it's not.
board or committee is really, it's running well.
It is.
So, and we need those people in the right positions for these two boards. So, so when you say this person would stay for 2 more years, so you're saying extend it for another 5-year, is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that he would stay until, because currently he's staying in the position until we make a decision on everything. So, since a decision hasn't been made, nothing would change. He would stay in that position until a decision is made, which would be now until, at very least, the next election.
Is that how it works? Is that how it works, David? Like, I know you said we can not make a decision and everyone's, stays status quo.
Again-
Does it ever expire, that status quo?
I would double check that, but my understanding is the reason why Mr. Pilati is still there now is because it indicates that he remains until a duly appointed successor is appointed. I would confirm that. I didn't have that in front of me, but I would confirm that, but that's my understanding. That's why Mr. Pilati is still serving. So
So
that
as long
is-
as we didn't appoint someone to be the chairman of the planning board, he could potentially stay there indefinitely.
Exactly, because the idea is, the concept is you don't want the planning board to be down a person because the council couldn't make a meeting, couldn't make a reappointment because of a logistical reason. At the very least, this is more of a bigger question that Councilman Beauregard's bringing out, but it is a technique, I guess. I could confirm that, but that is a technique.
But what are the logistics, right? So in a year from now, or November 2025, it's 2025, I forgot. We're going to have folks on the planning board whose terms are up. So we can determine whether or not we want to reappoint those members, but then we still have Gary, that his appointment has expired, so.
Sounds kind of messy.
Yeah, it sounds like, it sounds a little bit messy, and to Kim's point, we're not necessarily, Gary's application, right, or his request for an exemption, rather, just prompted the discussion. Again, term limits for the planning board, the zoning board, are not standard practice across municipalities. So, at least, town solicitor, in your experience. So we are one of the few municipalities that have the finite number of terms. I think too, the zoning board and the planning boards are incredibly important boards. We don't want to lose that institutional knowledge, especially with the 146 corridor coming along. I don't want to lose institutional knowledge because of a term limit ordinance that we have in order. That's almost like me being in my role for 10 years and I'm doing a great job and I'm getting great peer feedback and I'm really adding value, but then somebody says, oh, you're doing a great job, Rebecca, but your 10 years is up because that's in our contract, and then, you know, you lose that institutional knowledge. So I just think, again, the responsibility is on the town council to make informed decisions. We can determine that we don't want to reappoint somebody, right? And we have to have those uncomfortable conversations sometimes. But the fact of the matter is that we're really, really kind of pigeonholing ourselves with this term limit.
If I can reply.
Yes.
So, as you know, I was on the state police, and mandatory retirement. I would have loved to stay, but mandatory retirement, I had to leave after 25 years. In my opinion, I knew all there was to know at that point about the job. I could handle anything that came my way. I considered myself a very good supervisor, a very good part of the administration. You know what happened the day after I left?
They backfilled you.
Somebody else took my position, and the job went on just fine without me. And that's the way life is. And granted, we wouldn't have, maybe we wouldn't have the knowledge that the person leaving would take with them, but life would go on fine without them. You know, we'd figure it out, and it always gets figured out. Everybody is replaceable. Everybody's expendable.
I mean, I understand your point, but that's the job, right? So that everyone is lined up behind you, but this is a volunteer position, so it's not really apples to apples, you know? Like, people are lined up because the next state trooper replaced you, right? But we don't have, like, all these ready to backfill, you know? So I understand your point, but then also, if we extended this, or we got rid of the term limits, and then we had it go through the charter review, then the same thing would happen in a couple of years if we extended this, correct? Iglios, Solicitor?
I was trying to confirm what Mr. Beauregard said, and it is true, just so it's on the record, that board members will continue to serve until their respective successors shall have been designated. So that's under the charter. But I'm sorry, your question was not
So,
that.
no, but if we were to go with the no term limits, and then we had the charter review go in and then review term limits, and it goes out to the voters, and should the voters say, yes, there should be term limits, then we could go back into our term limits, correct?
Absolutely,
So it's the same,
absolutely.
Okay.
You get to the same place multiple ways, but both sides. And keep in mind, I don't want to throw any more into this, but the state law had authorized the town to create the terms for these boards and commissions at any term not to exceed 5 years, but the council determined to put it on the ballot to make it a 5-year term. So there is a 5-year term by charter that went to the public.
Right,
But now we're talking about how many of those you can serve.
right. So
That's
it's
the
still 5
distinction.
years, it's just there's no expiration after 10.
Right, on the charter. Correct.
Anyone else have any other discussion regarding this?
Seems to me that the cleanest way to move forward would be to extend to the 3 terms and then have the charter review, because it's weird that the zoning board and the planning board are the only ones with term limits. Obviously, that was done for a reason at some point. You know, maybe we can determine or find out what that reason was, and if it was, you know, legitimate, then it stays in. We've extended, you know, we've kind of achieved what we're looking to achieve to some degree with the current situation. And if, you know, it's determined that term limits are not necessary, you know, it sounds like other towns don't have them, then they go away.
Point of clarification, some towns don't, some towns do. I think when I was the interim director of planning and development of Socket, I believe they do have term limits.
Just for planning and zoning,
I
or,
believe so, yes.
so there's definitely some reason it was done.
On the other hand, I contacted quite a few planning committees. I am a planner, I feel like I'm at an AA meeting. I am a planner. But a lot of the planners I spoke to told me that they do not have term limits, nor do they advocate for them. So it seems to be a
Yeah.
whole mishmash of options here.
Like, I don't get what the point of it would be. I'm sure something happened somewhere along the lines, and, you know, someone made a decision, hey, we should put term limits. But, you know, it just, like Rebecca said, if they're doing a good job, should we call on this person?
We have to open, we have to make a vote to open it up.
If, you know, if they're doing a good job and they want to, you know, if town council wants to keep appointing them, then, you know, it works. If they're doing a bad job and they don't get reappointed, it still works, so.
I'm aligned with, if we want the charter review committee to, you know, review this, you know, present their recommendations to us, and then we, you know, follow that process. I'm aligned with that. So that would be, we would be extending to 3 terms, a maximum of 3 terms. And then, you know, they would have to wait, what, 5 years in order to, you know, reapply for the board?
After the 15 years, 3 5-year terms, then they have to wait 5 years and they
Okay.
can reapply.
But
That's the
can-
way it works right now, under your ordinance only. That's not your town charter. That's your ordinance only.
But they could
Obviously.
hold an alternate position in that time and it wouldn't count, right?
Yeah, I think that's right, but I could double check that, but I think that's correct.
Hold on,
But-
clarification. Our charter says that the zoning and the planning board are 5-year terms. Our ordinances say that we are limited to 2 5-year terms. So the charter review committee is not reviewing our ordinances to make,
They're not,
recommendation there.
but since this council, if this council decides to throw that ball into their court about whether or not you should amend the charter to make the term limit be in the charter, which would mean it would be out of your hands, one way or the other, that's something that you could, the charter commission is gonna do whatever you tell them to do. I mean, keep that in mind. You know, they're gonna do, if you have specific list of concerns in that charter, that's gonna be part of the process. It's not gonna be they're just gonna go off in a room and do what they want and come back. You're gonna send them in a room
Yeah.
with some kind of charges, some orders, like, I'd like you to look at these sections, and that wouldn't necessarily prevent them from looking in other things, but this is something that you're talking about. If you want them to investigate it, you would do that, and you'd have them report to you.
yeah. But
If
in the
you-
event we make any changes to the charter, right, it's harder to amend the charter in the future than it is to amend the
Absolutely.
ordinances.
Charter requires a
Right.
vote of everyone, whoever
Right.
shows up in an election, requires an election vote.
So what we're talking about is essentially amending the ordinance, not the charter.
Right.
So with that being said, you know, we might have this conversation 5 years from now. And it's not a charter question, it's an ordinance question. So does that bring us back to our initial, I mean, I hate to monopolize all the time with this, but I think this is an important conversation that we need to have.
I'm just going to put a motion out there to open up to public forum for this topic.
Public hearing.
Public hearing. Well, we're in a public hearing anyway, right? So we can.
Right, but I mean, public hearing now invites the
All
public
right, so
to
is
speak
anyone-
beside you.
Do we have any more questions amongst us before we open it up? Okay. All right, so we're going to open up, make a motion to open up the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punjak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Gail?
Yeah, was your seat on fire back there?
I know.
Hello? Oh my. Gail Berlinghoff, 21 Bruce Drive. The only problem I have with this is that the alternates are with town council. So we have the chairman, but chairman gets appointed by the people, not town council. So as far as Gary's concerned, if he would leave, then the other ones usually go up. So what happens to the alternates? They've been there maybe 3-4 years waiting for a spot so they can vote. And then all of a sudden now they can't. They got to wait another 5 years. So that's my only question. There was a reason for it a long time ago. It doesn't apply now. I know that. But I'm just concerned about the alternates. So are you going to get rid of the alternates? You have to look at that also. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam, I just want to indicate, just so the point's well taken, except keep in mind alternates have served the purpose of voting. They are eligible to vote whenever there is someone absent. That's their purpose.
Right.
It's not a move up process. It's that all of a sudden there's only 3 people there, the alternate steps in. That's the purpose of an alternate. An alternate, as you know, only get appointed, I think, and I was just looking at this, they only get appointed, I think, to 1 year, 1 year terms.
Yeah. And theoretically, if there's a vacant seat because a voting member, whether they resigned, whether their term is over, they didn't want to be reappointed, that alternate would have to apply?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Alternate, it's not a graduating basis. The
There's not like a
alternate is-
succession plan?
Right, it's not
Okay.
a succession plan. It has been, in practice, often utilized that way because you have somebody that's been an alternate for 2 or 3 years, they built up some experience, and now the 5-year term is up, and the person didn't ask for it again, and the alternate applies, and they theoretically have 2 or 3 years of experience, and it does make sense, but it's not required.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Okay. Anyone else want to speak on this?
Might as well join in. Robert Najarian, Chairman of the Zoning Board. Council Borgard, if it's about one person, it's actually about 2. I'm up as well. 15 years, I think, is a wonderful compromise. That's more than enough time to contribute to the town and to learn the position, and then step back. So if you're looking for a reasonable compromise, I think 15 is the number, and the 5 years off gives you plenty of time, and/or if you're able to come back as an alternate. For everyone, including all of you, when is the last time we had a full slate and every volunteer board across the town? Every week, the newsletter, opening. So I don't know that they're knocking down the doors, trying to volunteer. Both positions are very difficult, very demanding if you do it properly, requires a great deal of balance, impartiality, discipline, and patience. Those are qualities that are not at every door, at every corner. So, and I did read one report in the Valley Breeze that indicated the tendency when the first ordinance was written of mental stagnation. Well, I can assure you, and I'm sure that you all know, there is no mental stagnation on either board. You're very fortunate, as all the membership and the town. We have some very good people on both boards, very engaging, very balanced, impartial, and objective. And they don't come with an agenda, which is the primary reason you would have limitations. And the other one that's most important is right there, technology. Everyone can see every meeting live, archive. You can listen to the tone and attendance and the temperament of individuals, and you're going to know if they are conducting themselves in the manner in which they should. So you have control, you really do. 20 years ago, you didn't. If you didn't sit there and listen, you went on hearsay. So I think we're in a good place as far as balance, and the town happens to be in a very good place as far as the quality of the people that you have serving you. So I understand it, but I think 15 is a good number if you think you need it. But ultimately, the burden falls on you. If in 5 years the person isn't meeting your standards, then you don't reappoint. All the term limit does is take that responsibility away from you.
Right.
And the one caveat that nobody seems to maybe have immediately in their mind is if you take away a highly competent and performing person, and you don't necessarily have their replacement, you're victimized because of the timing. So it's something to think about. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jarian, what's your address?
Oh, I'm sorry. 511 Buxton Street.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Anyone make a motion to close the public hearing?
You made a motion, or I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
We have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yep.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes.
I would, if I may, I would, I'd be willing to compromise on that and go one more 5-year term, but put a limit to it, 5-year, 3 5-year terms, and,
And then put it to charter review.
yeah, that'd be even better, yeah.
Okay. You want to make that motion?
Yeah, all right.
But does it go to charter review if it's an ordinance?
Correct. So, yeah, so when, so my motion is just to go along with the extending the term limits to 3 5-year terms, from 2 5-year terms to 3 5-year terms on the, for the zoning board and for the planning board.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. And then, Solicitor Igliozzi, do we have to do anything further with this?
I do not believe, I do not believe so. I believe the draft that was presented to you at the last meeting is sufficient. It's still in your packet tonight. You can act on it. The only thing that will happen is there will be an editorial comment to it. For instance, right now it reads, if you look at it, amended in 2021 at the very top.
Yeah.
Says 5 dash. We're going to add 2025 as well, so there'll be 2 amendments. So there'll be an editorial amendment. This will end up going to a general code, who will then insert it as it should be into your new code, which we're now doing on an annual basis. Quarterly, even better.
Okay.
So-
And now, does the planning board need to be advised of this so they know how to move forward, or?
Well, it has to be voted by the council,
Okay.
and then it has to be posted for 20 days. I believe it gets posted for 20 days before, you're making a motion that it's a passage upon, it takes effect upon passage, but it's still subject to a 20-day posting.
Okay.
And then what I would do is, an advertisement, and then what I would do is just circulate this to the boards and commission. So I would still make sure that this, this form gets submitted to general code, subject to any editor edits. You know, we're talking about code edits grammatical edits and date edits, not language.
Okay. So do we have to bring it back onto the agenda at all, or?
No, you
Okay.
do not. You just need to, if you're satisfied with it, you make a motion, subject to any editorial edits by general code.
So make another motion?
Nope, I just want you to
Oh,
be
okay.
aware of that.
Okay, all right.
But with that being said, we cannot complete appointments tonight for the planning board because we do have to advertise it for 20 days.
It says it takes effect upon passage, so you could move on it. If someone were to challenge it, then we would deal with that.
All right, better off just holding it.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. And then we'll just move past appointments for now, and then go to new business discussion by council vote or other action on approval of contract for Maury Fire Tower repairs with Mill City Construction. Ms. Monty and Mr. Pendergast?
Did you take a vote on that?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I missed that. I apologize.
that's why I was asking, do we need to do another?
On January 16th, you voted to award the bid for the Maverick Tower reconstruction to Mill City, and at that time, we needed to get 2 documents from Mill City that were required in the bid proposal from PAR. So we reached out to Mill City. We got those 2 documents, which were in your packets, A101 and A201. We ran this by PAR. They were satisfied with it. So we just want to move forward with this project now that we have the appropriate documentation and we can award the bid.
Does anyone have any questions?
So there's not a problem. On your memorandum, it says description of problem.
Oh,
There's not a problem.
no, there's
it's
no
just,
problem.
okay.
Yes, there's no problem.
Just trying to figure out what the problem was, but.
That's the format. I could have changed that, I guess. Yes, it's not a problem.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone have any questions? Anyone like to make a motion?
So I will make a motion. Sounds like it was already approved to be
Yeah.
awarded. It's just to sign the
Right.
contract in the
Yeah.
general conditions. I will make a motion to have, is it the town council signing or the town administrator signing?
It's a motion to approve the contract and authorize the town administrator to execute.
Okay, I will make a motion to approve the contract and general conditions and authorize the town administrator to execute said contract.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
I recuse.
Sorry. Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yep.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd like to add to this too, I'd like to acknowledge Bobby and Ray, who've worked on this, but Bobby, I think, lost a lot of sleep on this project, because there's a ticking clock here, so she worked very hard.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you.
Bobby.
Next one, discussion by council vote or other action on mandatory ethics training scheduled for March 27, 2025 at 6 PM at 83 Green Street. I just wanted to make sure that, I know this is going out to all boards and committees, but just to kind of reiterate how important it is that all the boards and committees understand that they should be attending this. I know you can only send stuff out, but if we can send, I know it's gonna be a lot, but if we can send to every individual board committee member, for them, like, save the date, like, must attend, mandatory, something, so they know, like, they just don't throw it away, that they do come, because it's really important that people understand, especially if they're new committee members or board members.
Right. I did speak with Brian about that before she went on vacation, because if you go onto the on-board that we have for all the boards, we can go in and actually do like a mass mailing.
Okay.
So when she comes back, we're going to do that. So maybe I'll ask the solicitor if he can maybe help craft something a little more, you know.
Yeah.
Demanding.
Yeah.
We're also working with the solicitor on doing similar events as it relates to the Open Meetings Act and the Access to Public Records Act training for all staff too.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be great. Can you go up?
I haven't been involved in this, but I did get a question from one of the planning board members as to whether they've already gone through the ethics training. Do they need to repeat it?
I mean, it wouldn't hurt, right? I mean,
We had a similar situation with our tax assessor. She just went through it, through her association. I told her that no, she did not have to go it again. But if you've gone through it in the last several months, I would say no. But if it's been longer than that, because the laws are constantly changing, I think it's never a problem in being exposed to the rules again.
Okay,
thank
thank you.
But I would just add that, just like the Attorney General's Department does an annual presentation because of all the new rulings that they've made, the Ethics Commission makes rulings every year. And so, at least on an annual basis, there could be significant changes that we're just not aware of that change from today, from last year. So that's the thing, it is constantly in motion with the Ethics Commission having meetings, so I agree with the administrator. I would say if it's a year or more, they should probably attend.
Okay, great. So Joanne, we can do a mass mailing or, okay, thank you. Discussion by council vote or other action on North Smithfield Police Department request for purchase of replacement vehicle. Mr. Donovan?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I know there's some new faces on the council, so I'm Detective Steve Donovan. I've been with the department for 12 years, and the last 6 years, one of my duties is to manage the fleet for the department. So with that, one of my responsibilities comes with ordering new vehicles when we're in dire need for one of them. So we had a vehicle that was involved in a motor vehicle accident. Everything was reported to the insurance company, the trust. They deemed that vehicle was totaled, and they ultimately issued whatever they felt that vehicle was worth. They issued a check to the town. So we obviously need to replace that vehicle because that vehicle is obviously totaled. So what we're doing is we are requesting one Ford Explorer be purchased from Colonial Municipal Group at the amount of $45,274.90. Then after, the vehicle will then be upfitted, which means like the lights, sirens, everything will be put into the vehicle by Island Tech Services for the total amount of $4,518.40, bringing the grand total to $49,793.30. The trust did issue the town a check for the total vehicle of $14,600. That amount would be put towards the total grand total, which would bring the grand total coming out of the police detail account, $35,193.30. And I'm not too sure if you guys are familiar. I know all the council members are, but the police detail account is a cruiser account that we have. So when officers work details, we charge an hourly fee for the cruiser that's out on the detail. All that money goes into its own account, and that own account has been used in the past to purchase vehicles when we run into the same exact situation.
So what year was that vehicle that was totaled?
That was a 2018 Ford Fusion.
Anyone have any other questions?
Madam President, I do. What contributed to the accident?
The officer was on a detail with that vehicle.
I'm sorry?
The officer was on a detail on that vehicle, and he was actually struck in the rear by a drunk driver.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Anyone make the motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the expense of $35,193.30 for a new Ford Explorer. The original price of $45,274.90, in addition to the tech upgrade of $4,518.40, bringing the total of $49,793.30. You getting all this?
Nope.
Just trying to break it
Okay,
down.
and so then we're gonna subtract the amount for the insurance reimbursement of $14,600, for the total of $35,193.30.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. House.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go back to discussion by council vote or other actions on recommendations from the Hollowell Review Committee and the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee on the Hollowell Building Committee Resolution. Mr. Porter and Ms. Tebow.
Ladies before gentlemen.
What'd you say?
I could get in trouble either way. Don't repeat it.
Say seniors first, how's that? Linda Tebow, 83 St. Paul Street in North Smithfield, chairman of the Multi-Generational Committee. I just wanted to let everyone know that we had our meeting on, what was it, December 12th. And the purpose of that meeting was just to discuss what our recommendation would be to the council regarding the committees. And so there was much discussion regarding that. A couple of the members of the committee still wanted to be involved, but then we had a motion by Joanne Paula, seconded by Muriel Halloran, that the Multi-Generational Committee and the Hallowell Review Committee be disbanded and a building committee be formed for the building of the center. Roll call was taken and it passed. And then we had our meeting. We made a motion to have a meeting with the Hallowell Review Committee, which we did, and that was on January 16th, Thursday. And there was a lot of give and take. What should we do? What should we do? What should we do? And such. And so the motion was made by Josh Sylvia that the new committee, the building committee, would have 5 voting members to include 1 member of the town council, and that there would be 2 alternates that, in case somebody wasn't there for a vote, inasmuch something like the zoning committee, and that there would be 3 members of the admin team, the administration team, as per the town administrator, and that was our recommendation, and so that's all I got.
Thank you.
Jeff Porter, Chairman of the Hallowell Review Committee. As Mrs. Tebow has reported, we met on January 16th. I had emailed the recommendations to this council and the administration. So we were in agreement with the number of members, 5 voting members, 2 alternates, and 3 of the administration, that of which of his choosing. We also had a series of resolutions that were presented on Thursday night. We had one resolution that was provided by the town clerk's office that was through with President Alves and Solicitor Igliozzi. And we also had another resolution provided by the administration. So our comments are strictly in relation to the administration's resolution that I had also forwarded along to you. So there was some comment going back and forth on, there's a line under section 2 over the tasks at hand. There was a lot of discussion about oversight. So we had recommended that there was one line that goes for advising the town council on issues related to and overseeing the North Smithfield Multi-Generational Center. And then additionally, there was another line that had struck in oversight of construction and completion, and we recommended to reinstate that line. And then there was an additional line, which was 71, which was throughout the development and construction process. We just wanted to make sure that we were clear on what the responsibilities were, and
how the committee would be contributing mostly during the construction phase. The HRC had also made the recommendation to just take a look at what the MBRTF resolution was stated to do, because we felt that that was a similar building committee. We did find it with the assistance of the town clerk, which has also been forwarded along to you for your review and reference. And then lastly, there's a couple of whereas statements up at the top of the resolution. One whereas statement that we felt should also be included was the $1 million grant that was received for recreation on the site at Hallowell, thinking that this is going to be an entire thorough process, that it would be all encompassing. So we just wanted to make sure that we are in alignment and collaboration with the administration, with the council, and how that $1 million grant is being watched over. There was just a concern that if there was one group that oversaw the $4 million and another department or group that oversaw the $1 million, we'd be in a similar position to what we were in previously between the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee and the Hallowell Review Committee. So thinking that there could just be some clarification on where that lands. Other than that, I'm happy to answer any further questions. I would say that we had a very productive and good conversation with both committees. There were compromise. We listened, and I know there were some questions that were held from counselors that are here tonight that were not responded to, but you guys can certainly revisit those as you guys deliberate. So I also have 3 of my other board members here, so if there's any other clarification that they wanted to provide, they certainly could. But again, I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
And just to touch on your point that some questions from the council weren't answered, the reason they weren't answered is because it wasn't a joint meeting with the town council, and there were 3 of us present, so we didn't want to be put into a position of having an open meeting. So just to elaborate as to why questions weren't answered. So if any counselors want to ask those questions now, and we can talk about it together. Dave, did you want to go back to your question? Probably don't remember it, right?
It was, let's see. Yeah, well, it was about process, yes, and now I feel like it's only gotten more confusing by introducing this with the comments, this with the comments incorporated, and then what we were originally provided, which doesn't even align with either of those documents. So what are we really looking at, or how are we moving this thing forward now? If it's a matter of taking recommendations from the 2 prior committees, incorporating those recommendations where we see fit, and then also, comments that we have among the council, then let's get started.
Town Administrator, did you want to review any of the changes? Did you have any comments that you want to make regarding any of the?
No, I don't. I really don't have any.
Okay.
I think the comment regarding the $1 million is very appropriate to make sure that's in alignment. I've had conversations with the chairman, and I think we're very comfortable in how this is going to proceed. And I just, for the benefit of the council, because I really haven't had the chance to talk to the council about this, with the exception of the leadership, the administration's comments, which were based on, in response to the resolution that came out of council president and the solicitor, was that we felt there were some missing elements that needed to be incorporated. And none of those elements and none of our contributions were in any way, shape, or form intended to question or undermine the work that the committee's done to date at all. It was simply to say that, number one, to protect the town as it relates to our insurance under the trust. It's important that that volunteers perform their services under the supervision of town employees. That's a requirement, which is the whole purpose of putting that in there, as well as to say that, the more heads to the question, usually the better the solutions, but in the end, it's the decisions of the council, because neither the committee nor the administration staff have any decision authority here. But that was the main intent, to put that in there, to ensure that we meet the test of the trust, and not in any way meant to undermine what the committee's done to date. But the comments that Mr. Porter made, I understand, I'm totally in agreement with it, and we're ready to get going.
So when you say you're in alignment with the $1 million grant, are you saying to add that
The
verbiage?
whereas to include that, yes. I think
Okay.
it's important that those be connected, and in fact, both those grants will be provided to whoever we hire on the short-term basis to make sure we get the documentation, the application process done for both grants, not just one. In fact, if you read the grant for the $1 million, there's a lot of overlap between that and the Hollowell project. And so it's very important as part of the overall capitalization of this project.
Do we need to actually discuss the semantics of this tonight, or do we agree that we want the $1 million grant language included in that whereas line item, and then the town solicitor would update the language?
So I don't know if anyone wants to act on this tonight because it wasn't in the packets. So people might want some time
Is
to,
this the one, this is what we're looking at,
Yeah.
the longer version of it, as opposed to the
Yeah.
shorter version?
If I can interject on that, if the conclusion is because there's a question of process and voting on this, now clearly the solicitor can respond to this, and I can circle back with Mr. Porter on the finalization of the document, so that when you get it the next time, there is no question. And we're all behind it, and the solicitor signed off on it. If that's what you choose, or if you want to act on it tonight, that's fine too. That's your call.
Again, I want to weigh in. I don't think you should act on it tonight. It just, one of us. I just think it's best, because this is a substantial number of changes. I even found a minor thing. I really think we should, if the council wants to go with the administration revisions and Mr. Porter's revisions, we should gather those. I should be directed to do that. We'll send you a cleaned up copy, a clean and a revised one. I think a clean, if you assume that you want to accept all those revisions. If there's a revision that was mentioned by either first of all, if you have no complaint with the administration's revisions, that's a starting point. That'll be substitute A, if you will. And then Mr. Porter's comments, if you have no objection to that, you just direct me to work with substitute A, the administration version, incorporate Mr. Porter's version into a final version for council consideration at the next meeting. That way you're going to vote on a clean document. Because none of this document obviously was just circulated on Thursday, right? Again, that's my advice. I mean, I'll do whatever the council wants, but I'd rather have the clean version in front of you.
I'm personally aligned with that proposal. I think, too, I know that we want to progress this. I think that will also allow for applicants to apply to the Hallowell Building Committee. Right now, we only have applicants to the Hallowell Review Committee as well as the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee. It's my understanding, Town Solicitor, that we can't necessarily just carry over those applications to the HBC. We actually need applications specific to the Hallowell Building Committee.
That's a process that you would have to determine.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything wrong with the committee, the council saying, send everybody a notice that anybody who filled out those applications, they're gonna be considered for this committee.
Okay.
Because the other two committees are being dissolved. I don't have a problem with a note to that effect. That way,
Okay.
and let us know if you don't wanna be on that committee, something to that effect.
Okay.
Rather than make them refile an
Okay.
application that just has a different title on it.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I mean,
Yes.
I wouldn't think anybody would object to that. That makes the most sense to me.
well, the only
You
thing-
want people to apply, right?
Yeah, we want people to apply.
Yeah, because the only thing is what we have in our packets for boards and committees is anyone on those committees, they just want to be reappointed, so we don't have any background or any, it just says,
I thought there was I'm sorry, I thought you said you had applications for those committees. You just have requests to be reappointed?
yes, sorry.
But don't you have an original, well, then you can do that. Then why don't you just do that, ask them to do that? We got 2 weeks. I think anybody interested will do that. I thought you had a series of applications.
No, I think we're waiting to build this committee, and then we would put it out for people to apply to this committee, and then we could go through there and see what, you know. Okay.
Then I stand corrected. Count.
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
I don't mean to be Debbie Downer here today, but Jeff, we discussed this earlier, about months ago. Is $4 million enough to build this? Like, are we,
No.
we're doing all this, and we're doing all this work, and we're getting these committees and everything? Do we have enough money to even build the building? We need another $2 million.
Yeah, that was what we voted on, yeah.
I know. I can't speak for you, but that's why I voted to keep it at Pacheco.
Well, right, and that's why I didn't vote on moving forward, because we're over $2 million short on this building, so, and that's part of the resolution that we had, is to make sure we can come up with some funding sources, because we don't have the building that we think we're getting right now, so, yeah.
Jeff, do you mind if I jump in on this one? I think it was fairly clear when the committee made their presentation to the council that they knew there was a gap, and that they were going to work to fill that gap. And at some point, there has to be a decision. And that decision is, we're not going to get there, so we're going to have to scale back to the core function. We're going to be working very closely with the committee to raise that money. For example, I made reference about the CDBG money. We're going to apply for $500,000 for this project. So we have to work really hard to start raising money to fill that gap. But I think both the committee and the administration knows there's a gap. And if we don't fill that gap, that means there's going to have to be a pivot, if you will, to scale the project back a little bit. But we have our intentions of filling the hole.
Thank you.
That's also one of the tasks that's outlined in this resolution. So, as I said previously, BH+A had provided a schedule of 2 months schematic design, 2 months of design development, and 2 months of construction documents. So that gives us a good chunk of time to identify, work with the administration to figure out, okay, are we going to hit where we are at 6, or are we going to have to scale back? And that's more than enough time to pull back and figure out, add alternates, add deduct alternates. There's a number of ways that we can skin this cat. And I am fully prepared to, if I get reappointed to this new board, I'm fully prepared to help out do that with my expertise.
And Jeff, can you just remind me, the BH&A building, the $4 million version was how many square feet?
I don't recall offhand, but it was basically 1 room and an office and bathrooms to service it.
And the Scouters square foot for $4 million was, do you recall?
Pretty much the same thing.
It was quite a bit bigger, right?
I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't think
Okay,
so.
I was just trying to picture it, that's all. So I guess what we're up against is, do we want the administration and Jeff, but if you and Jeff meet, I would also ask that Linda be included, because she's part of the other committee, that we all kind of have to agree on this, because it's not just one committee. Huh?
Why don't you get the committee first?
No, to drop the resolution. Yeah, to critique the few things that we're talking about, because we know that the other night we talked about increasing the membership. And then the administration's obviously talking about protecting the town with the trust and stuff and certain pieces of it, and then also adding the $1 million piece of it. So is everyone in favor to have them review this and come back to us in 2 weeks?
Sure.
Yeah, I think that's fair. One thing I would like to point out, I haven't heard it mentioned, was there was discussion about the term of all members, and I had mentioned this to you, David. I don't think that having the term coterminous with the council not approved them is a good idea. So, as you mentioned Thursday, the potential of eliminating a complete build, actually, I think Josh brought it up and you echoed the sentiment of eliminating a complete building committee is a possibility, the way that is written. And, I don't think that's a good idea.
And Councilman, just so I can weigh in, as we discussed, the council created this committee by resolution. I don't care if you say you're appointing them for 100 years, the next council can dissolve it. So that's why you don't want to create an unrealistic expectation with a committee. You know, you can't confuse this committee with a statutory committee like a zoning board or a planning board that has a statutory term that was created that you can't change. You cannot change the zoning board unless you change the charter. I'm talking about the 5 years. This could be changed by any council. So it's really about not creating committees or ad hoc committees that have this unrealistic expectation that they're serving 6 years or 7 years. I mean, giving that example, even 5 years or 4 years. So you can put whatever you want in there, but you should understand that that term is meaningless in the form of a resolution. That was my only comment to you. This is a resolution. These ad hoc committees are created by the council, and they live as long as a council decides. You could dissolve this next week. You appointed somebody for 2 years, and next week you decide to dissolve it, it's dissolved.
You had sent me changed text that I think colored or
Right.
was a little more applicable.
I just wanted you to be aware of that. I'm not trying to be argumentative. I want the council to be aware that this is an ad hoc committee created by the council for a specific purpose, and it lives and breathes with the council. That's how it works.
So on this resolution, do we just, because we're going to be adding the $1 million grant, do we have to kind of put in a little bit more language about surrounding property or recreational areas around the building? Because it's not just the building, right? It's the property.
What I would do is I don't recall the terms and conditions under which that grant was issued, but I would get the language of the grant. And I would just say, there's a $1 million grant that's for this purpose, so that nobody gets confused and thinks that it can be put into the building.
Yeah, the question really pertains to the $1 million grant, and there are specific uses that are delineated in that. We can incorporate that to the resolution to cover that.
Perfect.
What I would do is I would work with the administrator, Mr. Porter, get this cleaned up copy. I would circulate this to the council. Obviously, do not reply, right? You can't start having a conversation, but the council can certainly look at it, and they can certainly communicate directly with me if there's any issues, so I can be ready at the next meeting.
Okay.
So we're not having another discussion about something. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So do we need to make a motion to have?
I think the council can make a motion that the revised draft will be generated in the administrative form with input from Mr. Porter's comments and the council's comments tonight for consideration, something to that effect. Give me some room and give us some room. A motion to present a revised draft consistent with the administrator's information, Mr. Porter's comments, and the council's discussion tonight.
Okay.
Does that make some sense? Give me some room to give you, a different version.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any other questions? No? All right, I'll make a motion to authorize the administrator to work with the town administrator, the chair of the Hollowell Building Review Committee, as well as the chair of the Multi-Generational Building Committee, and revise the resolution to move forward to create the Hallowell Multi-Generational Building Committee. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes.
So that means we can't do anything about dissolving those two committees?
So we can, well, we won't dissolve the Hollowell Committee, but we can dissolve the multi-generational, right? Because,
Only if they want to be dissolved, otherwise I would wait.
well, we took a motion, right?
Is there anything that they would be doing between now and 2 weeks that you would,
I guess we can just hold off and do it
Just
all at
hold
the
off.
same meeting, right? Okay.
Can I just make one comment on that document?
Yeah.
There is a typo at the very top. It's Mutley instead of multi, so.
Well,
I'll blame that on the planner.
well, there's been a flurry of documents back and forth. We'll get that cleaned
Yeah,
up.
okay. All right, so the next one, discussion by council vote or other action on resolution establishing the Hollowell Building Committee. So that one we're gonna table until, next meeting. And then discussion by council vote or other action on resolution dissolving the Hollowell Review Committee will table to the next meeting also, as well as discussion by council vote or other action on resolution dissolving the Multi-Generational Advisory Committee. We'll table that one to the next meeting. And discussion by council vote or other action on appointments to the Hollowell Building Committee, we'll have to table that until we get to the resolution and dissolve those committees. Okay. All right, the next one is.
Madam President?
Yeah.
Would we still be looking for applicants? Is that, can we still go out?
Yeah, we can still ask for applicants, right? We
Okay.
just don't have the resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can post that.
Okay.
Discussion by council vote or other action on appointments to town boards, commissions. See attached spreadsheet for reappointment and/or vacancies. So you have the packet of applications. Okay, so nothing for the Asset Management Commission, Budget Committee?
Madam President?
Mm-hmm.
I would like to make a motion to appoint Michael Hayden to the
Michelle
Budget
Hayden?
Committee. I'm sorry?
Michelle Hayden?
Michelle Hayden, I apologize. Yeah, see, I'm not as good as spelling as you. Yes, Michelle Hayden.
Is there no discussion prior to nominations?
We can, you can discuss as we do them.
Okay.
Do you want us
If
to-
I may,
yeah.
just a suggestion. Typically, if there are more than one for one spot, we would just see if there's a motion, and then you can make it, someone else can make it. We don't take a vote, and someone makes a motion, so everybody knows the names that are being presented.
But if you're making a motion to appoint Michelle,
Michelle, yeah.
then we either second and then vote.
No, we would see if there's any other motions for any other applicants, and then we'd go back to the top. Is there a second for Michelle? Is there no? Okay, then is there a second? It's fair that way. That way there, like suppose Claire over there doesn't realize that somebody else is on there. She can, otherwise she's voting for the first one that comes along.
Okay, well theoretically, we reviewed the packets in advance, so we know
Correct.
who's in the packet. Okay, I mean, if that's the process that everybody's aligned with, I would prefer that we discuss the two applicants.
Yeah, that's, okay. I agree.
Okay,
That's kind of what I said, but I just said it in a roundabout way.
well, you made, it sounded like motion second, motion
Yeah.
second. I think that we have two applicants here, if you don't mind, Madam
Yeah,
President. We have two applicants. I mean, based on Mr. Davis's open forum speech, as well as his application here, I think that he is majorly qualified for the Budget Review Committee. He has an MBA degree with finance and accounting. He's expressed interest in the past, not just today, but in the past, at past town council meetings and our budget processes. And I think that it speaks volumes that he came out to speak about, his application. I do see that Michelle Hayden she is a retired financial analyst manager. But in looking at her packet, I don't see any listed qualifications, in comparison to Michael Davis. I think that he is the more qualified candidate to be on the budget group. PU
I think
committee.
someone just cleared their throat.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you were, I didn't know if I was saying something out of turn. Okay. I think he is the more qualified candidate to be on the Budget Review Committee. I think the Budget Review Committee is one of our most important committees, and we need to ensure that we are rather appointing based on qualifications and who we feel really will do the best job. And based on these applications, I think that Michael Davis is that applicant.
Okay, Mayor?
Sure.
If you're based just on the applications, Michelle Hayden is retired, so she served a lifetime as a retired financial analyst. That's almost a gift. She's a retired financial analyst, and she's applying for the Budget Committee. That's kind of a slam dunk. Mr. Davis, I'm sure he'd do a fine job, but he just doesn't meet the standards that Michelle Hayden has put forward. His occupation title is engineer, where the application title for Mrs. Hayden is a financial analyst.
That's a fair point. He does have an MBA degree with experience in finance and accounting. And also, too, we don't necessarily know how long Michelle Hayden was a financial analyst. She could have been a financial analyst for 5 years, right? But anyway, I'd love to hear what our other town councilors have to.
Yeah, I have to say, just sitting here for several years, Mr. Davis has been part of the audience for many meetings, especially during budget season. And, you know, just a page from your book, John, that if someone's applying for something, they should be here.
Oh, I agree.
To kind of talk about their credentials. So I agree with Michael Davis, because he's been here for so many meetings and he has spoke several times in regards to the budget. So I would think Michael Davis is pretty qualified. Anyone else?
Well, I think if we, this is an opportunity here with this individual. You really see somebody that's actually, their qualifications, their resume is exactly what we're looking for, a financial analyst on the Budget Committee. It just seems to me that I don't even understand why there would even be any questions. This should be like a slam dunk, like I said, but, and I understand that it does mean a lot when somebody shows up, but that hasn't been what we've been requiring of people to show up. But no, you're right, it does mean a lot when somebody shows up. But she did apply, and she's retired, so she isn't a little older. She has more experience than Mr. Davis. She's been paying taxes a lot longer than Mr. Davis, and she's probably can be a better fit for that position than Mr. Davis.
How do you know that? Do you know how many years she's lived in town?
No, just generally, she's been paying taxes. She's retired now, so she's been paying taxes her whole life.
So isn't everybody, right?
But I'm saying, she's been paying taxes a lot longer than Mr. Davis, and she's a financial analyst.
Okay, so, somebody want to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion.
There's a motion already,
So you
right?
have a motion for Michelle
I have a motion
Haddon.
for Michelle Hayden.
Yeah. Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. Go ahead.
Didn't we just discuss?
We're
Do you
gonna
have
vote on it, right?
Okay, so any further discussion? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
No.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
No.
Ms. Alves.
No.
I'll make a motion to appoint Michael Davis to the Budget Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
No.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. And Joanne, these people will be notified? Okay,
We'll
thanks.
send letters to them,
Thank
as
you.
well as emails.
As well as what?
Emails, and we'll let whoever is the chair of the board or commission We'll let them know that they've joined and give them all the information.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask at this time, should we change some things that anybody wants to sit on a board, et cetera, should be coming here to represent themselves and clarify everything they write down? Because, you know, I'm looking with Johnson. He was he an engineer now, 7 years? The other person, but she wasn't specific. She could have been doing something for years that it'd be hard. Like I tell you people, we're lucky to have a lot of people on the boards. We couldn't afford you. And then when you recommend something, we don't go along with it.
Can I respond to that? Can we discuss?
We can discuss, right?
Yeah.
We're under the topic.
I think the only thing, and I agree with you, Claire, I think that there's a lot of opportunity with these applications. I think we should require resumes, especially for some of these boards that, you know, are saying that we want to ensure that we have qualified candidates. I think that there's opportunity to optimize these applications to ensure that we're getting a comprehensive understanding of I don't know why I'm looking at you guys, so that we get a comprehensive understanding of who's applying, so we can make, again, more informed decisions on, you know, appointments. So I don't know if there's opportunity to review that in the future, but Claire, I think that's an excellent point.
Okay. All right, the next one is Charter Review Committee.
I'd like to nominate Gregory Burnett, based on, I'm sorry.
So before we start nominating, Joanne, I know we asked you a question earlier. Do you know if there's other applications that maybe did not make this list before we start?
We have no other applications.
Okay.
There may be, I looked through the emails and I do not have that application that we were talking about.
Okay.
And usually they come through the portal.
Okay, all right, just want to make sure before someone wasn't included, that's all.
May I ask a question of somebody in the crowd? I just want to be sure that we have the list of applicants. I know formally that Mr. Savini did, he did express interest in being on the Charter Review Committee, so I just want to be sure that if he did apply, that we have his application. Okay, thank you.
No. To my knowledge, I have all applicants that have, I even searched for the other one and I can't find it. They go into a portal and I can look at that portal from here and I cannot find any applications for it. I have one for the planning and the budget, but not the third one.
Okay.
But with that being said, though, could this person have applied before the Charter Review Committee was a committee? Because I know that there is another applicant who didn't necessarily apply specifically to the Charter Review Committee, but did denote other, with the Charter Review Committee being the committee that he was requesting appointment to.
It would have been in all three files. I have a list. What
Okay.
I can see, he applied for 2 others, but they were
Okay.
not for the charter.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Can I move on my nomination?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I would like to nominate Gregory Burnap to the Charter Review Committee. Gregory did submit a pretty comprehensive application. He is currently an associate professor of political science. I mean, he has a PhD in political science, and he really would like to contribute to the committee's work. Yeah, I think that he definitely has the qualifications to sit on this committee and inform recommendations to the town council. So that's my nomination.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
This guy's the only one we have, right?
No, we
No,
have
we have that
6
other.
people, 5 or 6 people, 5 people. They're right here. You have to vote.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Elizabeth Newberry to the Charter Review Committee.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to appoint Kevin Newton to the Charter Review Committee.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara. Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Any other nominations?
I'll like to nominate Jeff Porter.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Any other nominations?
That's it, right?
Yeah.
They're already
The town
closed out?
council.
What's that? So this says 4 members of the public appointed. Didn't we just do 4?
We did.
And then someone from the town council.
Do we need to decide who from the town council?
Mhm. Does anyone want to serve as a liaison to this committee?
I would be happy to be a liaison, but I will defer if somebody else would prefer.
Do we have to nominate Rebecca for this position? Because if we do,
My
I'll make
husband's
that
gonna kill
motion.
me, but yeah, you can nominate me.
I nominate Rebecca to the town council role for the Charter Review Committee.
That's a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, just a quick discussion. The last Charter Review Commission that was put together back in 2000, I think it was 15. They didn't have a member of the council on there. Is
No.
that necessary to put a member of the council on there? It doesn't seem like,
It can be made up in any form, shape you want. I'm assuming this resolution exists. It must have been done some time ago, if the clerk has it.
It does exist.
This got passed by the council at some point prior to this meeting.
September of 2024.
So didn't Doug Ogier, he didn't revisit that? Well, he might have done a never mind. Okay.
Do we want to hold off? It says it on the
No,
list. That's all.
it's perfectly fine. A charter committee in this form is not like a charter commission that gets created when no town has a charter. So that's always the confusion with people. A charter commission gets created once when you have no charter. Those people have to be elected by the public, this is a committee. Technically, they're doing your job. You would be the charter commission normally. That's why they go and they do some work and they make recommendations to you, and you can accept some of them, none of them, or all of them.
Council President, can I make a comment? I think one of the values of having a town council representative is that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the council sort of sets the guardrails for the Charter Review Commission, and therefore having a council person there as a representative of the council may help in keeping the commission within the guardrails that you set. If not, it could get anywhere.
And
go
this,
ahead,
I'm
I'm
sorry,
sorry.
and this committee only goes until June 30th, and then it basically is terminated, so it's only for a couple of months, actually.
That can be extended, but the original, I don't recall when this was created, the original thought was you didn't want a committee, charter committee going off for years at a time. You wanted them to go do something very intensely for 6 months, 4 months, 5 months, if you want to make it 9 months, whatever that is, and come back and issue a report. This isn't something, this is a specific function that you go, you do it, you come back, and you turn over your report. And that's their function. It's not an ongoing committee. It's supposed to be a very specific thing. So that was an arbitrary date. We can get the resolution out. They need more time. If they need more time, then we're closing it on February. If they need more time, they can ask, and you can expand it.
I only mentioned it because Rebecca I get the feeling that she's just being nice and.
Oh, no, no, no.
No,
I
no,
would be
I'm-
happy to be on the charter
Right,
review
but
committee.
I get the impression that you're doing it, gladly doing it, but you're doing it because nobody else is gonna do it. But, and all right, I'll do it.
No, no, I would be honored to be on the charter review committee. If we feel as though we want more of the public to inform the committee's, review and recommendations, I would completely defer to that and say, yes, we would have to amend the resolution though, to change that to 5 voting members being of the public. But I'll completely defer. Either way, I'd be happy.
All right, I'll second the motion then.
Okay.
Did we already vote?
Yeah, Dave
now?
made the motion.
You made the motion?
I made the
I think
motion.
I seconded.
Oh, you did?
Mhm. Did we already vote?
No.
Okay. So
First and second.
any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara. Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. South.
Yes. So now should the council come up with a list of things they want the charter review to work on?
They
Okay.
should. And charter review, like you say, can also come up with their own thing, and, but yes, I think the
Okay.
council should give them as much direction as possible.
Okay.
Do we need to ensure that's on an agenda?
Yeah, we can put an agenda item together.
Okay.
We can probably work on that next. So we're gonna table the Hallowell Review Committee until the next meeting, multi-generational committee till next meeting. Planning board, we're gonna hold off on that, right, solicitor?
It's up to you, under the charter, a ordinance adopted by the council is effective at the expiration of the 20 days, unless you set a different date, and we put in there effective upon passage. So it's effective right now. It was passed. So if you want to appoint the planning board members tonight, you may do so.
Madam President, there was a misunderstanding, because I was not aware that it would be able to appoint upon passage. Somebody did express, a very solid applicant did express interest in the position, and I said, oh, you got plenty of time to get it in, probably at least 2 weeks. So that's on me that this person hasn't gotten, so there is another person out there that is interested, so if we could just wait until the following meeting to make that position.
Thoughts on that?
I think that we have advertised these roles since, August? We do currently have an applicant. I think there was plenty of time to apply. I would recommend that we move forward and appoint who we have. But I will defer to the majority.
So just so I'm clear, Ariana Ramos is looking to be reappointed. Would she move up to the first alternate?
Again,
That doesn't matter, not necessarily? So if we were to appoint this applicant, are we appointing them to a specific spot?
you appoint them to a spot. You look at the vacant spots and you make the motion accordingly. That's exactly correct, Councilman.
So we could, in theory, could we take Ariana Ramos, make her a full member and
You certainly can.
Well, but then you-
Is she up? Is her term up? And has she applied for this term?
She's on the committee now.
she's on now, says would like to be reappointed. See, the thing I guess that's confusing for me is the term expires 11/30/2025. Is that,
25 or 24?
it says 25 on here, though. So her term expired in 2024, as did Cheryl Marandola's expired in 2024.
Yeah, this sheet's right, this sheet isn't right. Or no, 1 year, so she would expire in
yeah.
25.
It's
I got it.
expired, but,
Okay.
right, if she's reappointed. But we'd also have to make sure that she's interested in taking a full-time, because she may like being just an alternate.
Right.
So
Good.
that would have to be, we could potentially move her up, depending whether or not she is okay with accepting that position.
So I would say in seems to me the fair thing to do would be, if there is another applicant out there, I totally agree. It's been advertised for a lengthy amount of time. But if Ariana is interested in becoming a full member, I, would think we
I
should
don't
give her
believe
that
so.
opportunity, no?
There's no full member. The only position that's open, correct me if I'm wrong, is the first alternate, right? Okay, so there is no full member right now.
So
It's-
then why is
Well, that's
the
not
applicant
correct.
Doug Ogier under the 5-year term? Why,
No, hold
No.
on.
no?
Gary Pilardi
That
is
would be
requesting
the-
reappointment.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
in seat 4, so that's a voting member.
Mhm.
So Cheryl Marandola does not wish to be reappointed. So there's only
Alternate
one
one.
vacancy, of an alternate seat.
Okay.
Yeah,
But,
There's,
it's a little
It's-
confusing.
yeah,
there's a first alternate and a second alternate. Ariana's saying she'd like to be the second as well, reappointed. The first will be open, but then there's also one spot,
well, yeah, so
a
that's.
5-year.
Right,
So
so,
there's 2 spots open, an alternate and,
No, it's not a
Regular.
5-year, because we're extending Gary's.
Yeah, we're well, theoretically, we're reappointing Gary because we just extended the 5-year
Yeah.
right.
finite term to
So
5.
that seat would have to be filled by the applicant or extending Gary's.
Right.
Right, which we did,
Mhm.
so
So then the
this
only
applicant
spot
would
is-
be alternate 1.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Distinction is you haven't reappointed
Right.
Mr. Pilati yet.
Right.
So that seat is technically open.
Yeah,
Yes.
Until you make a motion to appoint him, that seat is open. You could
Mhm.
appoint anyone to it.
thank you.
So should we appoint him?
If that's what your intention is, you could appoint him, and that will solve that problem.
Okay, got it.
But do we want to hold based on John's request?
And then you decide what to do with the alternate position, based upon Councilman Beauregard's concern and Councilman Punchak's.
Well,
at this point, I think it's fair to wait. If the person gets his application in by the next meeting, then it's there for consideration. If the application doesn't come in, then
Okay.
we move forward. We've waited this long, stayed status quo this long. I think that the opportunity, should be provided.
okay, so we're fine until
2 weeks.
we're all set, right? I just don't want to, okay. All right, so we can table the planning board. The next one is Public Art Advisory Committee.
I'll make a motion to appoint Kim Solona to the Public Art Advisory Committee.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call?
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. And then there's also another seat open with an applicant.
I'll make a motion to nominate Kathleen McConaughey to the Public Art Advisory Committee.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Sewer Commission. We have 2 vacancies, 1 applicant.
I'll make a motion to appoint Michael Ganem Jr. to the Sewer Commission.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Do you, so it's a 5-year term, right? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow.
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara.
Yes.
Mr. Punchak.
Yes.
Ms. Alves.
Yes. Zoning Board.
Madam President, I would like to nominate Gail Burlinghoff to seat 4 on the zoning board.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
How many spots are there on zoning?
Seat 4 and an alternate?
So there's 2 spots.
Yes.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion and a second.
Well, don't I get to put up the other applicant if I choose?
How did we do the last one? Did we vote?
Per person, or you can take all nominations and then look what the majority voted, but you've been doing per person thus far.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second for seat 4. Any further discussion?
Madam President?
Mhm.
I don't know if, so now would I make a motion for Joey Savini?
This is when it gets confusing.
Yeah.
So we have a motion and a second for one person. We're going to do a motion and get a second for the next. No.
That's why I said it's either open of the floor to nominations where multiple names are up, and then you have like an election,
Right.
or you take a name, a motion, a second, a vote, and if it
So
fills,
then
it
I'll
fills.
rescind my second
Right.
and then open it up to
I think, so we
John
can get,
to,
So any other nominations then, and that's when, okay.
that's what I would do, because there's obviously some concern.
Okay.
So we have Joey and
Yeah.
Gail
Yeah.
both up for nomination, right?
Mhm.
And we have one full-time spot and one part-time spot?
Correct. Well, alternate.
Alternate, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would just like to nominate Joey Savini, because Joey's, I'm not saying Gail hasn't, but Joey has proven himself. Joey's here at just about every meeting. He knows what's going on in town. He's been very active, very involved. He ran for council. He really wants to be part of the going-on in this town. And I couldn't think of a better person to put on there for the full-time spot.
I don't necessarily think attendance to a meeting is an indication of qualifications for zoning.
You just gave Mike Davis a nod because he showed up at a meeting.
No. I gave Michael Davis a nomination in my vote because he has the qualifications as well as the attendance. I think that, again, the zoning board is an incredibly important board, and we know that Gail has experience as a zoning board member in the past. She's on the groundwater protection committee, so there's an overlap between groundwater protection and the very seriousness of understanding environmental prioritization as a zoning board member. So I think that Gail, if we're to put applications side by side, is the most appropriate person to be on the zoning board as a voting member.
And I don't deny anything you say about Gail. She's a perfect person for the position. She's intelligent. Everything you say, I agree with. However, one thing you didn't comment on is that she was already on the zoning board, and she left the zoning board. Now it's time to give somebody else a chance that wants to.
No, but you don't necessarily know what caused her to leave the zoning board, so I wouldn't necessarily say that that's an indication of why she should or should not be on the zoning board. She has the qualifications to be on the zoning board. She's incredibly familiar with the ordinances, which I know ordinances can be a significant learning curve. So do we want somebody to hit the ground running on the zoning board, or do we want to bring somebody up to speed? So that's why, to your point, I don't know who said this before, but an alternate position is a very good opportunity for somebody to familiarize themselves with the board, right? Get some experience, and then determine when there is an opening, if they want to be a voting member. I think that, again, these boards are incredibly important, and I'm going to stand my ground on this. We need qualified applicants, qualified people in these seats. Gail Burlinghoff is my vote for seat 4.
I mean, I have to agree about Gail, though, because she already has knowledge about land use, planning, zoning. She has a resume attached to her application. She was on the zoning board from 2018 to 2023. She volunteers many other areas in town. I mean, she's a wealth of knowledge. Every time there's something that comes up about land use or water, everyone's asking Gail for her feedback. So I really feel that she's one of those assets that we want to keep on planning or zoning, because she's just a wealth of knowledge, so. Anyone else have anything? All right, so now we're going to do a roll call.
Just so I'm clear, this is, you got 2 spots, but someone's gonna make a motion with the 4. There's one's got the full
Seat 4
term
has the vote.
voting member.
Yep.
So you should make sure you separate those pieces,
Yes.
that's all.
So, again, I am going to nominate Gail Burlinghoff to seat 4 as a voting member of the zoning board.
I'll second.
Okay, so now we have a second, and now we're gonna do a roll call. Okay. Roll call?
No.
Mr. Christopherow?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Punchak?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
Yes. So then, now we have a motion for Joe Spady to be alternate.
Two?
Madam President,
Mhm.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Joey Savini to the position of alternate number 2 on the zoning, for the zoning board.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Biragad.
Yes.
Mr. Christopherow?
Yes.
Mrs. O'Hara?
Yes.
Mr. Punchak?
Yes.
Ms. Alves?
No. That's it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Open forum pursuant to 42-46-6D, maximum 3 minutes per person. Anyone like to speak in the last open forum of the night? Gail, raise your hand first, so.
Gail Burlinghoff, 21 Bruce Drive. Thank you very much for appointing me to the zoning board. I know it's against HIPAA laws, but I broke my back, and that's why I had to leave the zoning board. So, I mean, you can't really tell people you can't be on a committee because you left. You just can't do that to somebody. You know, I've worked with Mr. Najarian for years, Vinnie Marcantonio. I've learned a lot about the zoning board. I've learned a lot about the planning board. And to say that that was an insult to me. Mr.
Yeah.
Beauregard, I'm sorry.
Gail, if you remember, there was a point in time that you were gonna quit the zoning board, and I talked you out of quitting, so it's not like I don't have faith in you, it's not like I don't think you're qualified for the position. I just wanted to give somebody else a chance, that's all. Has nothing to do with you.
No, but the reason, you tried to talk me into it. But, you know, it's like, should I do it? Should I do it, or should I take my health into consideration because you wanted me back on the board because you appointed me? No, I'm sorry, Mr. Beauregard.
You did stay.
I'm sorry, Gail, can we,
I'm sorry, yes, I did stay, and it hurt. So, I'm sorry. Thank you very much.
thank you,
I
Gail, for
appreciate it.
everything you do.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Jeff Porter, 6 Country Way. First, thank you for the nomination and the appointment to the Charter Review Committee. Hope to serve that well. One question I would like the council to consider. I know by resolution or ordinance, there is a statement for both council, planning board meetings, zoning board meetings, and Hallowell Review Committee meetings to all be televised or broadcast via YouTube. I would also ask that the council look at revising that resolution to include whatever shape or form the new Hallowell Committee takes, and also have the Charter Review Commission be YouTubed. I don't know what the semantics are for that. CJ does a great job. He's here at every meeting for Planning Board in Hallowell, so it's always great to catch up with him. But I would say, just to be more accessible to the public, that we do broadcast those via YouTube. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? One more time, anyone else? Open forum? All right, motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, meeting adjourned.